Okay, so we're on the Raspberry Pi setup page, and there's a reason for that. We're going to actually set up the Raspberry Pi. This is the Model B, and I'm showing you a picture of it right here. It's a little dusty and old. It's been not cared for the past year or so. I've had it for a while. I haven't really done anything with it. But what I wanted to do is actually see if we could start a couple of tutorials that show you how to program on the Raspberry Pi. There's plenty of them out there, but these are going to be a little bit different because instead of using Python, which I think is probably most common as far as a lot of the tutorials I've seen, we're instead going to put Java on the Raspberry Pi and do that. So I want to make sure that if you're going to follow along with this tutorial that you've got a couple of things. Obviously, if you've got a Raspberry Pi, you want to make sure that you can power it up, and you've got to make sure you've got your USB cable with the power connector here. There's a couple things that you'll need. You'll want to I've got a couple of USB devices here. This one here on the bottom, this is my wireless interface. You want to make sure that you can connect to your home network, and the reason for that is because we'll be attempting to make connections from our computer or our laptop over to our Raspberry Pi. We'll be doing some HTTP connections, and we'll want to make sure that we can connect to a network and access it via an IP address. And then obviously what I've got up here, this is a little Logitech device. This is a USB interface for a keyboard. We'll want to eventually be able to log into it independently of any other connections, so log into it directly and make sure that we can set up the IP address and the network connectors. This is your memory card. Any Raspberry Pi is going to need a memory card. You don't have a hard drive in this case. It is a little computer, but you want to make sure that you've got your memory card so that you can store your operating system and store any files that are necessary to what you're doing. So that's what that's for. So long as you've got all these devices, all these accessories that go with it, you should be good to go. So we're all set. We'll just make sure that we plug our Raspberry Pi device into the power, and then we'll begin. We're going to start by going over here to the setup page here on the website. We're going to download what we need as far as the operating system is concerned, and we're going to prepare to flash that operating system over to the memory card on the Raspberry Pi so that it can actually work and do what we expect. And from there, we'll make sure that Java is configured properly, and we'll take it from there. Let's go ahead and let's get started. We're right now looking at the raspberrypi.org download page. You can get there by going to raspberrypi.org/downloads, and the first thing that you're going to come across is the recommended downloads here that they've got on this page. The first one they call Noobs. It says beginners should start with Noobs. Well, we're going to pretend that we're not beginners, and we're just going to come down here to the Raspbian distribution. The reason for this is because this is the one that I've used before. I think this is the one that you'll find most commonly used, and then the nice thing about this distribution is that it actually comes with Java installed. You can download the zip file, which is actually kind of sizable. I want to say it's close to about a gig, or you can download the torrent and connect to a handful of peers and potentially download it a lot faster. I've already downloaded it. I've got it here on my desktop, so I'm good to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some software on my Macintosh device to actually get this image and place it on the memory card that we'll be using as sort of the source drive for the Raspberry Pi. It's pretty straightforward, although it's been a while since I've actually done it. It's going to be a little bit different if you're on a Windows device. It's probably going to be a little bit different if you're on a Linux device. I'm on the Mac, so I'm going to show you how I do it on my system. And what I'll do is in the video description, I'll provide you with a couple of links to some tutorials on how you can do it if you're not on the same operating system as I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my memory card. I'm going to take it out of my Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to just go ahead and insert that into the card reader on my Macintosh. And I'll just make sure that it's there. And because it's appearing in this devices list, that suggests to me that it is. So I already actually have an operating system on this memory card. I've already used this Raspberry Pi, but I'm going to take what I've got on there, I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to put the latest one that I've downloaded on there right now. So what I do is I open up RPi ST Card Builder. This is an application specifically for the Macintosh. I'll bring that up. It's going to ask me to identify my image, and that's the one that I've got here on my desktop that I just downloaded. I'll select that. It's going to ask me if the card is connected. I'm going to say it is, and I'm going to continue. So this is going to pick up, it's going to show me the actual SD card, what's on there. I'm going to just go ahead and say OK to the default selections. And then it does some work. And the interesting thing about this program, I've used it before. Hold on. It needs the administrator password for me. Okay, one moment, please. Let me add my password. Okay. So it says wait until the SD card can be unmounted. Don't remove. So the interesting thing about this is the program, it works, it's effective, but the prompts are a little off. I've used it before, and I've kind of had to wonder, well, am I done? Am I good to go? And it can be a little bit mysterious. It's not blatantly obvious that it's done. Now, I want to say the last time I used it, it seemed a little bit more evident to me that it was. You've got this thing going on up here, suggests that it's actually working. But beyond that, you don't have any prompt. You don't have like a status bar or anything on your screen, so it can be a little deceiving. So the best thing to do is just kind of wait, make sure that things like this are no longer happening before you actually remove the SD card. So we'll just hang out here for a bit and we'll wait. Okay, and then after several minutes of doing this, the little gear up here in the status bar is still spinning, but I've got the little bouncing icon to suggest that I've got an alert here of some kind. So I'll bring it up, and it says that, yeah, it's actually completed, and that it's safe now for us to remove the SD card and connect it to the Raspberry Pi. And the interesting thing about this is it actually took several minutes. It took a lot longer than I was anticipating, and at one point I actually took the card out, and just because I got a little twitchy, and it informed me that I just screwed everything up and I had to start over. It actually took several minutes. When I put it back in and gave it a shot and said, okay, I'm going to be hands off, it took a handful of minutes. It took a lot longer than I remember it taking, but that could very well be normal. But you'll get this dialog that indicates that you're done. It doesn't necessarily pop out at you. You may see the icon here at the bottom of your screen indicating that there's a notice. But this does, in fact, mean that it's done, at least on the Macintosh. And like I said, I'll provide you with links for Windows and for Linux. And at this point, we should be comfortable removing the SD card from our card reader and placing it back in the Raspberry Pi. So I'll do that now, and then we'll go ahead and we'll begin the setup process. All right, I've gone ahead and I've skipped ahead. I'm already logged into my Raspberry Pi, but you're going to have to do a few things before you can get to this point. And it's a little bit difficult for me to record that because it's on a device that doesn't actually provide really convenient screen recording, at least in its current state, because it hasn't been set up. So what you'll do is you'll plug it in for the first time to your HDMI monitor device. You'll plug it in, make sure your keyboard is connected, and you'll also make sure that your Wi-Fi or your network interface card are connected. If you're plugged into a hard line on your router, you're probably in pretty good shape. But if you're plugged into Wi-Fi, you've got a little bit of work to do. But the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to turn it on. You're going to see some scrolling and stuff. I'll insert some video here just so that you can have a look at what that's like. You'll end up coming to this this first screen that's going to have you expand the whole operating system to your entire SD card. You definitely want to make sure you select that first option, but that's the only one that I do just to get me up and running quick. So you'll select that option, you'll press OK, it'll reboot, it'll do lots of scrolling, it'll be kind of intimidating looking if you've never looked at it for the first time, but it's all good stuff. It's setting you up, you're booting again for the first time, and you'll be good to go. You'll want to make sure that once you get to a good solid point, you're able to set up Wi-Fi if you don't actually have a hard wire connection into your router. And I want to show you how to do that. So I've already got that set up, and that's allowed me to kind of do a secure shell into my Raspberry Pi. But you will have to plug into your keyboard, plug into your monitor, the Raspberry Pi that is, plug those things into your keyboard, into your monitor so that you can log in and take a look. The first time you log in, your username is going to be Pi. Your password is going to be Raspberry. Of course, that's something that you can change. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to be on my private network, so I'm not too concerned about security here. But you'll log in for the first time, and you're going to want to edit a single file, and I'll show that to you. I was fortunate enough to find that on a tutorial that I'll bring up here on PiHut. The PiHut.com is one of the greatest resources that you'll find on setting up and managing your Raspberry Pi device. And this is where I went to find what I needed to do to set up my Wi-Fi connection on the latest Raspbian distribution here. So I'll go ahead and show you what that's like. When you're logged in, I'll bring it back over to my view of my command line here. So I'm logged into the Raspberry Pi in this shell window. So let me see, where am I? Okay, so I'm logged in, I'm at my home directory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just execute the command that's actually specified in the PyHut instructions here. And it's in a directory called, let's see, etc WPA supplicant, I think it was, and it's the WPA supplicant config. We'll open that up. And you'll probably find these first two lines, but what you won't find is this network identifier right here. And it's basically, it looks like the setup of a hash of some kind, but you're going to want to set up network equal, and you'll include your curly braces, and it'll have two values. SSID would be, of course, the network ID that you broadcast from your wireless router, and you want to include your password as well. Password is notated here as the value of PSK. This is obviously not my real password, but you'll want to make sure that you use your correct SSID. Again, that's the SSID that you're broadcasting from your wireless router, and then include your password and save that in this file. And then once you do that, you'll do a reboot. And executing this command that I've just typed here will actually shut down your Raspberry Pi and bring it right back up again. And then once you do that, you log back in. You log in as the user Pi, password Raspberry, unless you've changed it. Once you're back up to the command line, you'll want to make sure you run this. This is Ifconfig at the command line. And bring that up and see, and make sure that you've got an IP address. And I've got an IP address right here, which suggests to me that I am connected to my router. If it's assigning me an internal IP address, that's usually a pretty good sign, and that's what this is. If it starts with 192.168 or 10.10 or something like that, it suggests that your router is assigning this device an IP address and that you're on your network, and that's a good thing. We'll use this IP address to make HTTP calls. We'll use this IP address to connect to the desktop on the Raspberry Pi using VNC. So if you see this, it's a good sign. Once you're able to get your IP address on this Raspberry Pi, it suggests that you're on your router, you're on your home network, and you can log in. And what you want to do to test that out is start up a secure shell. I'm already in a secure shell for the purposes of this screen recording. You'll want to do the same by going to your command line. I'll log out. I'll show you how I do that. So we'll just go ahead and clear our screen, start over. When you're going to do a secure shell from the command line, you'll want to make sure that you specify your username at your IP address. Now mine was 192.168.1.84. Yours is going to be different. So we'll indicate that we're doing a secure shell. Our username is pi at 192.168.1.84 in my case. That's going to prompt me for the password. My password is still Raspberry. I have not changed that. And then I'm in. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll say, now that we're logged into our Raspberry Pi, we know that we're logged in from our laptop or our computer, and we're doing a secure shell connection into our Raspberry Pi. It suggests that we're on our network now, which is good. Let's make sure that we've got Java installed. So we'll do that by just invoking the Java executable and requesting the version. And it should come, and it comes back. That's great. It actually comes back with the build 1.8. So we're actually on Java 8, which is terrific. The last time I did this, it was distributing Java 7. Java 8 is the latest stable distribution. This is Oracle Java, so that means that we've got all the greatness that comes with the Java 8 API. So we've got the streaming API, we've got Lambda expressions that we can use in our codes. This is good. So once you're at this point, you basically have the basic setup to make sure that you've got a Raspberry Pi that's on your network, so you can make calls to it, you can connect to it. And we've got Java installed in Java 8. So this is terrific. This is a really good start. This is going to allow us to do some interesting programming and scripting on the Raspberry Pi using Java instead of some of the other dynamic languages that you'll find more frequently in a lot of these distributions. And then, of course, Windows 10 is also now available in a compact form for the Raspberry Pi, so that'll be something that we can experiment with down the road as well. So this should get you started with Raspberry Pi and Java, and then in future videos we'll do a little bit of programming in Java and see what kind of fun we can have. I can't wait. I'll see you then.